Everybody, and welcome to this lesson. And every Saturday at this time we begin with the Cambridge First Certificate, and we try to do some exercises from this exam. It's a very important exam, especially for people preparing for university entrance or to be a civil servant in a different country. This certificate is very valuable and it shows your level of English, and it's a very interesting exam. Also, for people just learning English, it's a very useful activity, and I really hope today anybody can learn some things from this lesson, and I am sure everybody can learn something from this lesson, so I hope you will enjoy it. The exercises today are a little tricky, they're hard, but I hope you will enjoy them, and when you learn how to do the first exercise, it should be easy to do the rest of them as well. Okay, I've started a little early, but that's no problem. Comments, if you have a question, if you have a comment, please leave your comment in the Facebook chat and I can check your comments and your questions later during the lesson or after the lesson as well. And thank you for your likes. Thank you for liking the video and sharing the video as well. This is my project. Everything is free, everything is public, and I want to try and teach for free, especially since the pandemic. And it's a good way to do something good, and it's a good way to work online as well. So this is my idea at the moment, and I'm continuing for now. So please leave your comment, please leave your question, and thank you again for your interaction. Social media, if you want to connect with me on the social media channels, I have the Instagram page here, TikTok page, YouTube page, Pinterest page, and the WhatsApp contact as well. If you wish to make contact in any of the social media channels, you're very welcome to join. So let's show you my schedule. This is my schedule this week. Today we are at the first certificate part, and there's lots of different topics during the week, and I hope that you can join some of them when you can. I imagine next week will be very similar. I think next week will be very similar compared to this week, and that's very good as well. So I hope you can join some of the lessons and keep in contact. Everything is free, everything is for the public, and as I said, that's my project. If you want to support me, you can make a subscription on my bank, with my bank, or you can make a subscription with PayPal, and this will be a very good way to support me, because definitely I will need support for this project, I hope, because I have my costs at the moment, and your support will be very welcome. Also, I am contacting companies, I am contacting businesses in relation to education at the minute, and if your company or business or school wants to sponsor my lesson, sponsor my company, sponsor my project, you're very welcome to advertise with me, and your support and funding will be very important for me and for this project. So you're very welcome to support me, and in return I can advertise your business, advertise your company during this lesson as well, and it could be very interesting for you. So hopefully you can consider that if you are a business or a company. Great, so let's look at the exercise today. It's a very difficult exercise, and this is part 4. Okay, so it's tricky. The previous parts, part 3, part 2, part 1, if you remember, were a little easier because we had an article and it was necessary to select the correct word for the article. So it was a bit different, but today it's completely different, and a lot of people say that this exercise is the most complicated exercise when doing this exam. I agree a little, but also I like this exercise because it's very interesting, and I think people can learn a lot, and I think it will improve your English. But let me explain first. Okay, so basically for questions 25 to 30, complete the second sentence so that the second sentence has a similar meaning to the first sentence using the word given. So they give you a word always, and it's necessary to use the word. Do not change the word. You cannot change. You must keep the same word like this. Okay, and this is different from part 3, because part 3 you must change the word, but in part 4 you must keep the word the same. You must use between 2 and 5 words, including the word given. So at the first certificate level, this exercise, you need to use a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 5 words for the sentence. For the advanced certificate, I think it's minimum 3 and maximum 6, so it's different depending on your level. But today we are doing the first certificate, and this is the rule. Okay, so here is the example, and this example will show us perfectly what to do. So the first sentence is, a very friendly taxi driver. I tried to use my pen. I don't know what the problem is with my pen. So it's not possible. Anyway, here's the first sentence. A very friendly taxi driver drove us into town. So the verb is irregular. Drive, drove, driven. The subject is the friendly taxi driver. That's the subject. He drove us, that's the object, into town. Now, the second sentence, we, this is the second sentence. It's necessary to create, to complete this sentence, to have a similar, almost exactly the same significance to the first sentence, using this word, and a minimum of 2 words, maximum of 5 words to complete this sentence. So the job is to have the second sentence with a similar or the same significance as the first sentence. So the second sentence is, we, something, a very friendly taxi driver. So this is peculiar and interesting, because if you look at the first and the second, you will recognize a very friendly taxi driver. However, the position is different. The very friendly taxi driver is the first part of the first sentence, and a very friendly taxi driver is the second part of the second sentence. So the position changes like this. The position changes, and this is classic. It's very typical with the grammatical structure of the active and the passive. So in fact, this morning I explained in my grammar lesson the active and the passive, and this example is a good example of the active and the passive. Remember, in the active we have the subject, the verb, and the object, and in the passive we change the position of the subject and the object. So us is the substitution for we, and the friendly excuse me, the friendly taxi driver is the same. We have the word driven. Driven is the verb drive, drove, driven. It's the past participle. So when we create the passive, the formula is the auxiliary verb to be plus the past participle. So driven probably is connected to the auxiliary verb to be. And that's important to remember, the formula and the construction for the passive, the auxiliary verb to be plus the past participle of the verb. So we plus the verb to be, and the verb to be is here in the past, because drove is the past. So we were plus the past participle, we were driven into town by. That's typical for the passive when you want to show who is doing the action. So we were driven into town by a friendly taxi driver is the correct answer. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words. It's a maximum of 5 words, and it's necessary to use the word given. Okay, so I hope you understand the instruction. I hope you understand the exercise, and that is a very interesting part of this exam. Difficult. A lot of people say it's difficult. So let's look at the first sentence. Excuse me, I'm itchy nose, and there's a lot of pollen. I think pollen or grass in the room. Okay, so the first sentence is, Joan was in favor of visiting the museum. This is the first sentence. The second sentence, Joan thought it would be something to visit the museum, and the word is idea. So basically the second sentence must be very, very similar to the first sentence, and it's necessary to use the word idea. It's also necessary a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 5 words. So Joan, no problem, is in the two sentences. Was in favor, so Joan was in favor of visiting. So basically Joan wanted to visit, Joan was happy to visit, and the museum. So Joan thought, thought, it would be, idea. So what do you think? This is a good opportunity for you as well. If you want to interact, if you want to practice and write your question and write your answer in the Facebook comment, put your comment in the Facebook chat if you want to interact, because it's a very good activity. So Joan thought it would be, and idea, I think, a good idea. Joan thought it would be a good idea, a great idea, a fantastic idea. It would be a great idea, a good idea. 2 words, to visit the museum. Yes, but it's not possible because we have to. So to visit to the museum, no. So maybe we need the noun a visit. And to make a visit, for example, Joan thought it would be a good idea to make a visit. A good idea to visit, no. To make a visit, no, not possible. 6 words. So we have difficulty. Joan thought it would be a good idea. I'm not sure. I have difficulty. So basically in the exam you have 2 marks for each sentence. So the first part is 1 mark. For example, a good idea probably is 1 mark. But now I have difficulty for the second part. Big difficulty. So as I said, to visit the museum is not possible. To make a visit is not possible. Too many words. So something related to visit with the preposition to. Going to, maybe going to. Joan thought it would be a good idea going to the museum. So let's select that as the answer. It's possibly wrong. That's number 25. A good idea going to the museum. Maybe something like this, something very, very similar. Maybe not exactly the same, but I think something similar to this. 26. Okay, so Arthur, first sentence. Arthur has the talent, the ability, the skill. Arthur has the talent to become a concert pianist. So Arthur has the talent, Arthur has the skill, Arthur has the ability to become an amazing concert pianist. Second sentence, Arthur is so that could become a concert pianist. So become a concert pianist exists in the first sentence and the second sentence, so we can eliminate this. Arthur, we can eliminate, has the talent is the key transformation. So we need to include talent. Talent in the first sentence is the noun, the substantive. So with the substantive, we use the verb to have. You have the talent. You have the ability. You have the skill. But in this situation, we have the verb to be. And when you have the verb to be, it's more typical the adjective. Okay, so for example, I give you a classic example with the word look and lucky. So adjective, you are lucky. That's the verb to be. You are lucky, you are fortunate. But the noun, you have luck. So here it's the verb to be, so we need the adjective. And the adjective of talent is so talented that. Okay, so Arthur is so talented that verb is could become, so always we need a subject with the verb, and the subject here is Arthur. So the subject is he could become a concert pianist. So Arthur is so talented that he could become a concert pianist, and I think that's correct. A bit simpler, a bit easier, but I think that's the correct answer. So Arthur has the talent to become a concert pianist. Arthur is so talented that he could become a concert pianist, I think is a similar significance with the first sentence. Okay, let's look at the next example, 27. So the first thing to identify in question 27 is the quotation. This is a quotation, and this is direct speech. There's a very important category in English known as direct speech and reported speech. And I think this is the category of direct speech and reported speech. The previous sentence was an example of transformation from adjective and noun with the verb to be and the verb to have. And the first example is just general English, I think. Okay, question. Do you know when the match starts, Sally? Asked Mary. So do you know when the match starts, Sally? Asked Mary. So Mary asked Sally, and the word is if, and the minimum words are 2 and the maximum are 5. The time the match started. Okay, so we have this accounted for, so we need to include no. In the second sentence, we need to include no with if. So Mary asked Sally if. Know is the verb, so we need the subject. If she knows in the present, but because it's direct speech, the rule is in reported speech, the tense changes. So for example, I like chocolate. That's my direct speech, but my friend said that I liked chocolate. So the most important rule with direct speech and reported speech is the change of the tense from the present to the past, from the past to the past perfect. So the tense changes when you change quotation to the reported speech. So basically, Mary asked Sally if she knew the time. Okay, so if she knew the, and I think that's correct because the time is the substantive. So basically, Mary asked Sally if she knew the time the match started. Seems to be correct. So this is probably easier for me because I'm a native English speaker, and also I have experience of these exercises. So at the moment, these are basic for me, but obviously some people have difficulty doing these exercises for sure, especially if you are starting this exercise for the first time. It's very difficult, but patience, logic, and different options. Consider your options are very important parts to do this exam. So I think that's number 27. Do you know when the match starts? Sally asked Mary. Mary asked Sally if she knew what time the match started. Okay, let's move to 28. And the question sentence is, I knocked. Remember the verb to knock? It's the past, simple. I knocked for ages, for a long time. I knocked for a long time at the door. But I received no response. I received no reply. So I knocked for a long time at the door, but I received no reply. And the second sentence is, I knocking at Ruth's door, but I got no reply. And the word is long. The minimum words are 2 and the maximum are 5. And knocked is in the first sentence, knocked is in the second sentence. Ruth's door in the first sentence, Ruth's door in the second sentence, but I got no reply in the first sentence and the second sentence. So we can eliminate this calculation. So the focus is I knocked for ages. And sorry, knocked we have here in the gerund. So because it's the gerund, we might be in the continuous form, and it could be the present continuous, I am knocking, the future, I will be knocking, the past, I was knocking. So this probably is the present, is the continuous aspect, the continuous form. And because it's the past simple, I suggest it's the past continuous, which is the verb to be. In the past, I was knocking at Ruth's door, but I got no reply. But long. Okay, so maybe I was knocking for a long time. For a long time. So I was. I was for a long time knocking at the. I was for a long time knocking at Ruth's door. Maybe. I was for a long time. Too many words. 6 words. So was a long time. Yeah, I think that's correct. So the answer is I was a long time knocking at Ruth's door. And I think that's correct. So there's 4 words, and that seems perfect. So let me write that just to check. Number 28. And I was a long time knocking at Ruth's door, but I got no reply. Basically means that I was knocking at her door in the past simple. It's more or less the same. So it's not exactly the same, but the instruction is to be similar, because this is the past simple, but this is the past continuous. Okay, let's continue to number 29. And the sentence in 29 is, everyone says that the band is planning, the present continuous, the band is planning to go on, is typical with the word tour. So everyone says that the band is planning to go on a world tour next year. Okay, so the band is in the second sentence and the band is in the first sentence. Planning to go on a world tour next year is in the second sentence and also is in the first sentence. So we need to use the word said, and there is a structure to substitute for everyone says. There is a structure with said, and this is probably the passive as well, because the structure is subject, everyone, verb says that the band is, so that's the object. So this is a type of the active. And again, we change the position. The band is at the end, so the band is at the beginning. And to create the passive, we need to include the auxiliary verb to be. And the band is singular and it's the present. So let's suggest the verb to be in the present. The band is plus the participle is said. That's the past participle. And that's the same to say everyone says the band is said. Okay, and we need the verb to be as well, because is planning, to be planning. Okay, so I think the answer is the band is said to be planning to go on a world tour next year. For me, that's very fluent, that's very comfortable, and it has a similar significance to the first sentence. But again, it's easier for me because I have experience with these exercises and I'm a native English speaker. So it's obviously a little bit easier for me, but I think that's the correct answer. The band is said to be planning, and that seems to be correct as well. Okay, so the band is said to be planning on going on a world tour next year. Next, number 30. And the first sentence is, I would prefer, I would rather, I would prefer not to cancel the meeting. So I would prefer has the significance I would rather. To cancel is the verb, and we need to use the word call. What do you think? What do you think is the answer? This is difficult, but there's only one possibility. So the key part is to cancel. And connected to call, there is a phrasal verb, very important phrasal verb with call, which substitutes for cancel. And the phrasal verb is to call off. You call off the meeting, you call off the party, you call off the match, you cancel. Okay, so the significance to call off means to cancel. There is a different phrasal verb to put off, and that means to postpone. Okay, so to call off means to cancel, and I think this is perfect. I would rather not, the negative, call off the meeting. So that's basic and direct and clear. But the hard part, the difficult part, is to identify the substitution for the verb to cancel with the phrasal verb call off. So I think the correct answer is I'd rather not call off the meeting. And I think that's the only possibility, that's the only answer. Okay, so that's a very, very good example of the part 4. Okay, and I see my camera is flashing a little, so give me one moment and I try to fix my camera. Okay, great. So that is an example of part 4. Tricky and very, very different compared to part 3, part 2, part 1. Very different, but this is the category of use of English. And in the Cambridge exams, the use of English category is very interesting, very testing, and very, very good. And this part 4 I like a lot because it's difficult to cheat. It's difficult to cut a corner. You must be very good at English. You must have a sufficient level to understand and to do these exercises. So they're very, very difficult to cut the corner, and you need to work hard. And if you work hard, I think you're in a better position and you're more likely to be able to do this exercise. So we have 6 questions and there's 2 points for each question, so a total of 12 points available. So let's check the answers. And here you can see the answers. And of course it's possible I have some incorrect answers. Of course it's possible. Okay, so the first answer is a good idea to go. So a good idea is correct, but the second part was to go to. And that is an error. So I have 1 point from 2 in this one, only 1 point. Question 26, talented, that he. So you can see talented is the first part, and the second part is that he or she, and that is 2 from 2 in that particular question. Number 27, if he or she knew, because it's a friend, you don't know if your friend is masculine or feminine gender, and in English gender, and in this situation, if she knew their time. So that's correct. The other alternative is what time, their time or what time, and that's 2 from 2 as well. So very good. 28. Spent, took, was. So there's 3 options of the verbs. You can say spent a long time, took a long time, was a long time. And there's 3 possibilities, but that is correct. And again, that's 2 from 2. Okay, 29. Here we have the passive. The band are said in the plural, that's fine. Or the band is said to be. And that's okay as well. So again, that's everything correct, and that's 2 from 2. And then finally, 30, not is the first part. That's 1 point. And call off is the second part. And that's 2 points, 2 from 2. Okay, so everything is really, really good. We have the vast majority correct. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 from 12. A total. Really good, really impressive, and very good. So that's an example of the exercises. Questions? Please put your question or your comment in the Facebook chat if you have any comments to say. And now we move to another exercise. So in my book, I have more exercises here. And this is very interesting because it's more activity to try exactly the same activity. So we have already done 6, and now I think we have 6 more. And this will be the final part of today's lesson. However, before we continue with this section, I want to show you a book. There's one very important book that will help you a huge amount in preparing for this particular part of the exam. The book is available online for free, and the website is here. So basically in Google, you type FCE keyword transformation, and this is the book, D. Mendez, and it's on the website academia.edu. Okay, so basically you download for free, and you can see the book here. You can see on the right it's a very, very long page, and how many pages? I don't know. So there's a lot of pages, but you can see the content. It's a brilliant, brilliant book to practice specifically these exercises. It's the best book available online, I think, to practice some of these exercises. Really interesting, really good, and a lot of content, a lot. But I absolutely suggest that you download this book and you try to do these exercises. So that's very important part of today's lesson, and I want to show you that's the book, the best book to download for preparing for this particular exam, in my opinion. Yes, it's a big book, but little by little, it's a good idea to prepare. Okay, let's begin. Here's the first question. They didn't sell many programs at the match. Okay, so they didn't sell, that's the past simple. Many programs, a lot of programs at the match. Very, something at the match last Saturday. Few. Okay, let me teach you something, the difference between a few and few. It's possible to say a few people or few people, and there is a big difference in English. So a few means a small quantity, but you are happy, you are content, and it's sufficient. A few people watched the match, and that's good. Small quantity, but you're happy. However, few people watched the match means it's very, very small and insufficient, and you are not content. So that is exactly the situation, the difference between a few and few. Here we have few, so they didn't sell many programs at the match. It's insufficient and probably not happy. So probably very few. So what do you think? This is tricky. We need to calculate sell and programs. So they didn't sell many programs, so probably very few programs. A very small quantity of programs is the first part. Very few programs. Let me write. 25. And the answer is very few programs is the first part. And how do we complete this sentence? We need to include the verb to sell. So in this situation, the subject is they and the object is the programs. But in the second sentence, the subject is the program. So we change the position. And this is an example of the active and the passive. And you must remember the rules to create the passive. We have the topic, programs, plus the auxiliary verb to be, plus the participle of the verb. So the auxiliary verb to be is in the past because didn't sell is the past. So very few programs were, they were, plus the participle of sell, sold. Very difficult, but I think it's the only option. Very few programs were sold at the match last Saturday, I think is the correct answer. That is 4 words and the maximum is 5. So very few programs were sold at the match yesterday or last weekend. That's my opinion. Okay, let's check the second sentence. We got to work late because we decided to drive rather than take the train. Rather than means instead of. So we got to work, we arrived to work late because we decided to drive instead of taking the train. So the second sentence, we got to work too late because we decided to drive. So it's exactly the same. There's no difficulty to substitute. The key part is rather than take the train. So the train and the train. So basically, rather than take substitutes for instead. And you must remember, rather than is the same as instead of. Okay, that's very important rule. And rather than has the same significance instead of. So rather than is a direct substitution to drive instead of is 26. And we also need to calculate and include take. But the verb form after instead of is typically the gerund. So instead of taking the train is the correct answer. So we got to work late because we decided to drive instead of taking the train. And that is the correct answer, I think, instead of taking the train. Okay? And that for me is the correct answer for number 26. That is 3 words. The maximum is 5 and the minimum is 2. Okay, let's look at 27. First sentence. Last Friday was the first time my car ever broke down. So the verb is to break down. This is when something stops functioning, stops working. To break down, the car breaks down, it stops functioning. So last Friday was the first time my car broke down, even though it is very old. Although it's very old. Okay, so until last Friday, my car never down, even though it's very old. So very similar, very similar. We can eliminate this, eliminate this. Down is connected with the verb to break. So my car never broke down. Maybe that's it. So until Friday, my car never broke down, even though it's very old. So maybe that's it, just never broke, maybe 2 words. So at the moment, that's my opinion. Never broke down. I think maybe there's another word, but at the moment, this is my opinion. Okay, let's continue to 28. And immediately, we can see a quotation. When you have a quotation, it's a direct comment. Direct speech and reported speech. And do you remember the rule for direct speech and reported speech? We generally change the tense from the present to the past, or the past to the past perfect, or the past perfect stays with the past perfect, from direct speech to reported speech. So basically, grammatically, this area is called direct speech and reported speech. Let's look at the first sentence. All your complaints. Okay, so the verb is to complain. That is the verb. And the noun is a complaint with a T. So the difference between the verb and the noun is very, very important. And here we have a complaint. That's the noun. So all your complaints, all your we have a phrasal verb to give out. All your giving out, all your complaints will be investigated. Future will be investigated by my staff, by my team, by my colleagues, by my workers tomorrow, said the bank manager. So the bank manager promised, that's a substitution for said, that his staff, and the verbal tense is will be investigated. That's the future, simple, but we need the verb look. And all our complaints is all our complaints. That's no problem. The next day, tomorrow, that's okay as well. Excuse me. So we have a lot of the sentence completed, and we need to calculate look. So the key word that's missing is investigated, and it's possible to substitute investigated for look. And there is a possible combination. There's a phrasal verb in English, to look into. This has the significance to investigate. So if you look into something, this means to investigate something. Okay, so if you look into the information, you look into the job, this means you investigate. And I think that's exactly the phrasal verb we need in this case. So the bank manager promised that his staff look into is the present, but this is the future simple. And I think we have two possibilities. We have the possible for the future simple, that his staff will look into all our complaints the next day, or maybe would look into. I'm going to suggest would, but I think they're almost the same, will or would. So this is 28. Would look into or will look into the complaints tomorrow. Okay, next, 29. Last year, the heavy rain caused the postponement of the tennis tournament. The verb to postpone, and here it's the noun postponement. So last year, the heavy rain caused the postponement of the tennis tournament. Therefore, last year, the tennis tournament so heavily. So we have the last year, tennis tournament, heavy, heavily. Okay. Last year, the tennis tournament, postponement. So the tennis tournament was postponed. So I think it's the passive again, was postponed. I think that's the correct answer. So it's the verb was postponed because rain, because it rained so heavily. Because heavily is the adverb, we need the verb. Because it rained so heavily. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's the limit. We need to use a maximum of 5 and a minimum of 2. So I think that looks good. Maybe you have a different opinion. I suggest it's a good idea for you to try this exercise with me at this time. And I hope I'm not going too fast for you. And maybe you can watch again the video if you need some extra tips. Number 30. Jack does not want to work for his uncle anymore. So Jack does not want to work for his uncle more. Okay, this is important because we have the word carry, and this is tricky because maybe you know it and it's easy, or maybe you have no idea and it's very difficult, almost impossible. Well, John and Jack, I think it's just a mistake. Jack does not want something for his uncle. And basically, any longer is like continue, any more, longer. So the verb to carry, there is a phrasal verb connected with carry that represents continue. And in English, the phrasal verb is to carry on. And this means to continue. Okay, so if you carry on doing something, you continue doing something. And typically, it's plus the ing. So Jack does not want to carry on working, I think is the only possible answer. And let's suggest does not want to carry on working for his uncle. And I think that's correct. And I think that's everything good. And that's number 30. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 exercises. And let's check the answers. The answers are on page 153. Okay, so let me go to the page 153. I think this is correct. Yes, okay. So let's check the answers. Number 25. Number 25 is here. Few programs were sold. Correct. So few programs is 1 point. And were sold is the second point. That's 2 from 2. 26. Instead of taking, instead of catching, instead of getting. So instead of, you have 3 possibilities for the verb taking, catching, or getting. So instead of taking, and that's correct. Instead of is 1 point, and taking is the second point. So that is 2 from 2. 27, had never broken down. So in this sentence, it's the past perfect, had never broken down. My example is the past simple. So technically it looks like I'm wrong, and the two parts are incorrect. So at the moment, that's 0 from 2. But I have a doubt. I don't know why it's the past perfect and why not the past simple. 28. Would is, remember, the direct speech and the reported speech. So in direct speech, will changes to would. In reported speech, that category grammatical is direct speech and reported speech, and that's very important to study. Look into is the phrasal verb, and the second possibility is to look at. So to look into is to investigate, and to look at is also to examine. So that is 2 from 2. Will was an option, but my first answer was would, so I was looking. Okay, 29. Was got postponed because it rained. Yeah, okay, so 29 is was postponed, got postponed, and that's the first point, because it rained, and that is 2 from 2. 30, to carry on. So working is 1 point, and carry on, so I forgot the 2. So technically, that's only 1 from 2. So I have some detail that I missed, so I have some mistakes. I have 3 points I missed, and that is 9 from 12. So let me check the answers or the exercise again, because I have a couple of doubts. And here we can see test 1. So the doubt I had was related specifically to had never broken down. 27. So last Friday was the first time my car ever broke down. That's the past simple. Okay, but until Friday, I think this changes the tense a little bit. Until Friday, so that's very difficult, and that's very, very hard. So I think this is the indication, this is the clue, and the reason why we use the past perfect. Okay, and I think that's correct because of the first part. The second doubt I had was number 30, to carry on. Of course, Jack does not want to carry on, so that was just a simple. I forgot to put the word in, but of course that's the correct answer. Does not want to carry on working for his uncle. Okay, so that's 2 exercises, and that is part 4. Again, it's a very important part of the exam, and that is the use of English. Part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. Now we move to the reading sections, and the reading is very, very difficult part of every English exam. Reading texts are really complicated because, for example, here we have multiple choice, and A could be possible, B could be possible, C and D are all seemingly possible. So for this reason, it's a very tricky task and very difficult. But the reading is a big part of the English exams, and I think next week we might move to the reading, or maybe a different part, but soon we will be doing the reading, and that's part of this paper. You have 4 use of English and 3 reading exercises as well. So massively important, massively interesting, and of course we will learn a lot of vocabulary at the same time anyway. Okay, so I think that's it for today. Remember, this book is fantastic because this book explains exactly how to prepare for each part of the exam, and specifically Cambridge tell us how to prepare specifically for part 4 of the use of English, the sentence correction. So here is the advice they say. In preparing for this part of the paper, give your students practice in paraphrasing. So to paraphrase is basically to say something in a different way. And that's exactly the task for part 4. You must say the sentence in a different way. To paraphrase is a good word. This might include rewriting sentences from texts. So that's a very good exercise to prepare for this exercise. Maybe take a sentence from a text sentence from an article and write the sentence in a different way. And that's very good practice, for example, in other words. Also, synonyms are very interesting as well. So lexical vocabulary synonyms will be very useful as well. And transformations of grammar are very important as well to do that. In the examination, you must make sure that the answer makes the second sentence mean as far as possible the same. So the instruction is similar, but as far as possible the same. So almost identical is the best instruction. But obviously sometimes there's a small little difference, but the best you can do. That's the instruction, to make the second sentence the best as possible compared to the first sentence. And that's really important. Next, remind your students. So my job, the teacher, to remind you that the answer must consist of 2, 3, 4, or 5 words. Minimum 2, maximum 5, including the words they give you. If you write more than 5, you will not receive the marks. So if you write more than 5, it's a penalty. It's no mark. Next, remind your students that they must use the key word in their answer, and you must not change it. So the words they give you stays the same. You cannot change the word, and you must include it. So it sounds simple, but of course it's very important that you always do that. If they do not use it, or if you change it, change it, you will receive no marks. Make sure your students pay attention to any verb in the final part of the second sentence. It will indicate it's a singular or plural, so obviously pay attention to the verb. For the agreement, is it singular, is it plural? The detail, and that's very important as well, to pay attention to that. Remind you that when writing your answer, they should not write the whole of the second sentence. They should write the words that are needed. So basically, it's not necessary to write in the exam, in your book, the part already on the text. So only write the words that are missing in your answer. Okay. When you are counting the words, you should remember that they must count contracted words. So for example, didn't is 2 words, did not, except can't really is cannot. It's 1 word. But if you write didn't, that's 2 words when you are counting your answers. And that's very interesting advice and very important advice to do part 4. Okay, so that's good. And then just to show you finally this book, if you go to the previous page and you look specifically at part 4, this is the explanation of what exactly is part 4, keyword transformation. In this part, there is an emphasis on grammar and vocabulary. Part 4 consists of 6 questions plus an example. Each question contains 3 parts, a lead-in sentence, a keyword, and a second sentence, of which only the beginning and the end are given. Okay, candidates have to fill the gap in the second sentence so that to complete the sentence it's similar or almost the same as far as possible in meaning to the first sentence. The gap must be filled between 2 and 5 words. One of the words must be the keyword. The keyword must not be changed. In this part of the paper, the focus is on lexical and grammatical, and a range of structures is tested. The ability to express a message in a different way shows flexibility and resource in the use of language. Okay, the mark scheme splits the answer into 2 parts, and the candidates get 1 point for each mark, for each part. Okay, that's part 4, and that's basically everything you need to know about part 4. Any questions, please put your question or comment in the Facebook chat, and I can answer any of your questions after this lesson now. And thank you so much for watching live, and thank you so much for watching recorded. Please leave a comment, please like the video, and of course you can share this video with your friends or anybody preparing for the exam, and hopefully people will enjoy this lesson. Great, so remember, every week, more or less, the plan is to have a Cambridge First Certificate lesson, free lesson, on Saturday at 10:30 in the morning. My schedule is more or less the same, and probably next week it will be the same. So this week we're almost finished. Just one more simple lesson in relation to advanced and proficiency vocabulary from a newspaper topic, and everything is free. and everything is for the public. This is my project at the moment. Since the pandemic, I started teaching online for free and for public, giving my advice, giving my tips, and giving vocabulary and teaching as much as possible online for free. But you can support me if you want, and I need support. So basically you can make a subscription and you can use my bank details, or you can subscribe on PayPal. All the information is on my Facebook post, and that's a possible way to support me if you can. If you are a company and if you're a business and you want to support me, you can advertise during this lesson. You can advertise here, and I'm looking for support and sponsors from businesses related to education, companies or charities, and you can put your information here. I can explain your business during this lesson, and that is a very good way to support or to fund my project if you can as well. Contact me on social media. I have the Instagram page, TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest, and WhatsApp information you can find here. And that's a very good way to stay in contact with me if you wish as well. Okay, great. So that is everything. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your patience and your interaction. Remember, the next lesson is in 15-20 minutes related to vocabulary from the newspaper, advanced and proficient. And please leave your comment as well in the Facebook chat, and I can respond to your answers and your questions and your comments. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and hopefully see you soon. Bye bye.